Welcome everyone. Welcome to PQT News and welcome. So there are going to be some things that are wrong. There are going to be some mistakes that I made. So that's what tonight is all about. It's about working out the kinks, making sure everything runs smooth. And I want you to know how hard I worked on all of this, like all week. And thank you, Carol. And like I said, I know there's going to be some things I do wrong. I know that there's going to be some mistakes I make. And not smooth transitions, but we're going to get there. I even have a little commercial. We're going to get there. So welcome, everyone. And welcome to my new low budget production, which we're going to be a high budget production soon. And that's it. So hello members, hello Patreons, hello members from my other channel, the new members, Cindy, Bonnie, welcome. And all right, let's get to it. I'm going to thank you. And believe me, this was not easy. And there's other things that I try to do that I've been working on that I have not gotten the hang of yet. So I have some people that are trying to help me, and so it's going to get better and better. This is just like brand new. Yeah, this is like my blooper night, but this is brand new, and I worked really, really hard on it, so I hope you guys like it. And that's it. I worked really hard on the set. It's not easy, believe me. So, and no, Stacy, I did watch that shit show. I won't lie, but it's not why I was late. All right. So, first things first, am I blurry for you guys? Because I'm blurry for me. My internet sucks lately. Anyone else having YouTube glitching? See, that's what I'm saying. All right, because it is 9/11, I would like to start out, before we even get started, with a tribute. Oh, I got blue all over my hands. With a tribute to 9/11. As you guys know, I am from New York. And I was in New York when 9/11 happened. I knew 2 people that got hurt and 1 that died. I knew 2 people that died after effects. And when I say after effects, what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of the steel workers that went down there thought that they were going to be able to, you know, just help and move on with their lives. And my friend Dennis, who I was very good friends with, I put a video about him last year, but it's on my second channel, which I don't have. And he died in 2011 or 2012 due to the effects of 9/11. So it wasn't just about people dying that day. It was about people dying a lot of days. So I got a little tribute for you guys. I don't know why it's glitching, but I got a little tribute for you guys that I found, and let's watch it. It's a good way to open up tonight because it is 9/11. This is what I mean about not being so smooth. All right. Whoop. Bear with me. Because if I would have done this first, I would have been late by another like 10 minutes. All right. It's about 7 minutes. Whoops. All right, so what I was saying is that anyone that lives down... See, I told you there'd be some little glitches. Hey, hybrid, that anyone that lived down in New York City or lives down in New York City at the time knows how tough it was. My dad was down there. Thank God nothing happened to him, but he was supposed to be at the World Trade Center, ended up switching his appointment and got away. Thank God. Everybody has different views on it. I lived in Queens at the time. Everybody has different views on it. I can tell you, yes, it happened. What happened with the church, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. But the bottom line is, no matter how it went down, over 3,000 people died, and many people died with the after effects, like my friend did. So that's it. You guys can hear me now, right? Okay. I was going to say, yeah, I forgot to hit the setting. So now we're going to take a sponsor from Build Life. If you suck at drinking water, I hate not using a green screen. It tells you how much to drink and when to drink it. So that's my sponsor. And it comes with a straw. And it's under $20 on Amazon, called Build Life. Now back from your commercial break. I actually have a commercial to run. As far as the church goes, I don't know. There's so many speculations about it. I don't even want to speculate because I really don't know. It's definitely scary, and we actually don't know if there were bombs, if there weren't bombs, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. 3,000 lives were lost. 3,000 plus lives were lost. Many police officers, many heroes who went in to save their life. And at the end of the day, I don't really care how it happened. It happened. And many people lost their lives because of it. So that's why I wanted to open up with that. Now, I do have a trigger warning for some of the topic tonight. And I've checked my email, but I have a special guest coming on, an expert in DNA, which is going to cover the second half. And yes, he's an expert. For those of you that know me from Making a Murderer, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about because he's been on my show before. And he is absolutely awesome. He actually did DNA on the fingerprint in the Darlie Rotier case. And he's a really good guy. So, with that said, let me get first. And again, I still got sound problems. But Dane said our internet is bad. He said they're having problems. His friend who lives like 15 minutes away is having problems. He said everyone's having problems. Janelle, you know who I mean, Greg. I asked him to come on. Okay, and also I contacted the guy that I'm supposed to do an interview with for jail, and he has to work, so he's going to see what time he gets off. But the first thing I'm going to start with is, see, some people say I'm roboting, some people aren't. I don't know why. Let me just close this out. All right. So the first thing I want to start with is a pretty heavy topic. It's about death. Well, then again, I'm true crime. But it's about death and suicide and YouTubers. And a lot of people don't know this, but the reason why I thought this was a good topic is, one, it just kind of happened. And two, because I met you guys because of YouTube. We are in the 9th month of 2020. We're at the very beginning of 2020. I mean, very beginning of September. Well, I guess we're almost quarter way through. 40 YouTubers have died since January 1st. That's a lot. I know in the grand scheme of life, it may not seem like that much, but it is. So I've compiled a list of... There was one that just died recently, and it's very sad. He was 17 years old. Hold on, let me get... Alright, so if you guys don't know or you did know, Ethan Peters, he's a beauty guy. Absolutely beautiful. Looks better than most women. Died. Hold on. Died of an overdose. Whoops. He died of an overdose at 17 years old. And they say that a lot of the reason why he committed suicide was fame and fortune. Now, a lot of people who don't understand that mentality are like, oh, he's famous. You know, he became famous. He had a couple million subscribers. People don't understand. It's kind of like the music industry, which I do know very much about. A lot of bands fail when they go on tour because they don't realize how much it takes to do it. They don't realize the strain that it puts on them, the stress that's on them, the demand that's on them, and it's really no different than YouTube. I've seen a lot of people make it and then fall because whether it be drugs, whether it be they couldn't handle all the money they were making, they just turned into assholes. It happens all the time. There's a little thing called being afraid to succeed. I personally am more of afraid to fail, but a lot of people are afraid to succeed. They don't want to try to be better because they're afraid they might actually get there. And if they get there, then what? Then they don't know what to do with themselves. That's kind of what happened with Ethan. He got big. He didn't know what to do with himself. He started doing drugs and he took his own life. Whether he took his own life or he accidentally OD'd, nobody knows. They're leaving it with unknown. But it's really sad. Yeah, he was bullying. But they say a lot of it had to do with his money. That he got too big for his own good. He never expected it. Never even realized it. He was bullied, but he had friends. He had people behind him. And he's gone. And like I said, he was an absolute beautiful boy. But sadly, he's not the only YouTuber. And that's what's sad. Iman Nemendez. He had 2.3 million subscribers. He died on August 16th of 2020 of leukemia. He died at 1 a.m. on Sunday, August 15th, while he was at St. Luke's Medical Center in Quezon City. His girlfriend, Peachy Santos, said on Facebook. Nendez first revealed to his fans in May that he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, a cancer of the blood and bone marrow. Santos said on August 13th that Menendez was rushed to ICU and was in critical condition due to kidney failure and blood complications. So he told his audience in May, and in August he was dead. I'm sure you guys know, I put this on the blog, Landon Clifford. He was part of Cam and Fam. He had 1.3 million subs. They don't know how he died. He was in a coma for 6 days and he passed away on August 13th. No rhyme or reason. I don't think they ever gave a reason. Bashar Baraka, also known as Pop Smoke, died on February 19th, 2020 after being shot twice in a home invasion in Hollywood Hills, California. According to authorities, 4 hooded men entered the home on February 19th, one of them wearing a ski mask, carrying a handgun. Police received news of the home invasion from someone calling from the East Coast and arrived at the home 6 minutes later, found Pop Smoke with multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to Cedars-Sinai where he was pronounced dead. By the way, he had 947,000 subscribers. E. Edison had 737,000 subs. He died on July 28th of 2020 due to suicide. Don't know why he killed himself. Whoop. Going the wrong way. Helga had 658,000 subscribers. Her death, she died in August of 2020. Unknown. Hey, GB. Terry Jones, as some of you older folks might know. Terry Jones, didn't even know he had a YouTube channel with 619,000 subscribers. He died due to complications due to dementia. He had been diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia, and sorry if I screw up, 2015. So you're wondering, like, how would you know Terry Jones? Well, he's part of Monty Python. So that's why I said the older people would know. Quinny. Whoop. Hold on, I missed someone. Whoop. Quinny was an artist. And she had 426,000 subscribers. She died on February 10th, 2020. She was diagnosed with terminal fibrosarcoma in December 2019 and died on February 20th. So it's like interesting. You never know who you're watching. They could drop dead tomorrow. Doesn't matter if they have millions of subscribers. So be nice to your creator. What? Did you guys just cut out? My internet sucks. So glad I pay all this money for it. Alright. I never shut him down. It's hard to remember shut all these down. Alright, where was I up to? Quinny. Alright. Tropical Life had 371,000 subscribers. She died of a motorcycle accident January 21st of 2020. Corey Labari. Had 348,000 subscribers, died of a car accident on May 10th, 2020. Corey Labari was in a car crash at night. He had been reported dead on the scene. Ink star master Daniel Silva was driving with Corey. At this time, Corey was celebrating his 25th birthday. 25 years old, died of a car accident. Then you got JJ Jackpot with 278,000 subscribers. She died of organ failure on April 14th of 2020. She had a heart problem since the age of 12. FBG Duck. FBG Duck was shopping when a car pulled up and shot him and two others. His gun jammed before he was able to react, and he died on arrival at the hospital. He was part of the drill movement of rap in Chicago. He was 26 years old. And he had 206,000 subscribers, died on August 4th of 2020. Homemade Everything had 193,000 subscribers. Thank you, Denise. He had 193,000 subscribers, died of cancer on March 19th of 2020. You got Maxie, who had 188,000 subscribers, died of a plane crash on January 8th of 2020. Died after a passenger plane was shot down in Tehran. Jamie Perkins, 182,000 subscribers, died of a seizure on June 5th, 2020. Phyllis Stokes, 143,000 subscribers. She died of natural causes on January 25th, 2020. Do you guys watch any of them? Do you know any of these people? I don't know any of them. Thank you, Andy. I don't really know any of them. I was wondering if you guys knew any of them. Thank you, Denise. Michael Brooks Show had 139,000 subscribers. Death unknown, died on July 20th of 2020. Oh, you knew him? Nicole Thea had 105,000 subscribers. She died of a heart attack on July 11th. At the time of her death, she was pregnant with her unborn son. Her death was first announced by her family on Sunday. I'm giving you their channels. These were their channels. Ivan Varela, 100,000 subscribers, died on February 19, 2020. Reasons undisclosed. I'm going to assume that's probably suicide. That's my guess. On topic, I could not find a channel for him. I could not find a picture. I couldn't find anything. He had 69,800 subscribers. He died of lymphoma on August 22nd of 2020. What scares me, I don't know if you guys see a pattern, so many of them died in August. A lot of people passed away in August for different reasons, but I took notice of that when I was doing all the pictures, that, yeah, a lot of people died in August. So he was mostly known for music memes and mashups that he uploaded to his On Topic channel, although he also did some gaming videos and had a satirical gaming news series called Gamer Opinions in his Off Topic channel. Off Topic publicly announced that he had cancer on Twitter on July 18th of 2020. A week later, he provided more information saying it was stage 4 lymphoblastic lymphoma. He died in his sleep at the age of 19. His death was publicly announced on his Discord server. The off-topic off server by Sepsiman, a close friend of his. Messages on the server were turned off for 24 hours in his honor. 19 years old. Caleb Meekins. Caleb Meekins had 66,400 subscribers. He died of a car accident on February 28th of 2020. On February 20th, Caleb got into a car crash while trying to catch a flight in London. He suffered from collapsed lungs and several head injuries. Unfortunately, he died from his injuries 8 days later while being hospitalized in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Katie Groves. This I don't understand. If anybody watched her, I would love to know what she did, because she looks kind of young. And she had 59,000 subscribers, and they have her dying of natural causes. I don't know how somebody that young could die of natural causes, but okay. Died on May 2nd of 2020. Paul Bear Vasquez, whose website was Yosemite Bear 62, had 50,200 subscribers. On May 3rd, Paul stated on his Facebook post that he felt feverish and was having trouble breathing and went to the hospital. Passed away 6 days later. He was tested for COVID-19, but no results have been released yet. So nobody knows if that's what he died of. Road Emotional, another car accident, 38,400. Died on July 11, 2020. Lexi Alige had 27,000 subscribers. She died of a drug overdose on January 1st, 2020. Her death was confirmed on Twitter and Instagram. It's really sad. These people are so young. Samantha Jolly, 23,900 subs. She died 10 days after her 50th birthday. She died of brain cancer on January 10th. It was 10 days after her 50th birthday. It was only 4 months after her doctors discovered that her condition was incurable. Thank you, Meerkat. Say hello to Jack Skellington. Who's Jack Skellington? John Loss had 21,700 subs, died of liver failure on August 3rd of 2020. Jonathan Chen, VappyVap88 was his channel, 16,800 subs, died of cardiac arrest on April 22nd of 2020. John Harden, Matches 860 was his channel, 13,500 subscribers, died of a heart attack on January 28th of 2020. He actually had a heart attack due to an allergic reaction. Pan Reiserwick, 10,300 subs, died on April 20th. Make sure a lock, shock, and barrel are behaving in the head. What are you talking about? Suffocation due to epileptic seizure. Domson, 6,200. This one is kind of a freaky one. Died of a skate park accident. While performing a jump on a bicycle, he wanted to bypass a little girl that appeared in front of him. He fell on the ground and started bleeding. Later, he died before an ambulance arrived. His channel is managed by his brother, Victor. Thank you, Meerkat. I just don't get the message. Grant Amara. He died of a brain aneurysm. He was 49 years old, which scares me because I'm 49. Died on July 13th, 2020. He was part of the building team on Mythbusters. If you guys ever watched Mythbusters, he was on Mythbusters. And he died at the age of 49 from a brain aneurysm. Scary. I know you guys all know Harley Dilly. He died of compressive asphyxia, if you believe that, or some of us believe he was murdered. He died with 3,950. Harley Dilly was found dead in a chimney after he went missing for 24 days. Nid Ku died on April 3rd of 2020. He had 2,890 subs. Died of brain cancer. We're almost done. It's crazy, though. And I'm sure there's people on this list that are... Oh, I got you, Meerkat. I'm sure there's people that died that I couldn't find on this list. Vinnie Cooper died on June 13, 2020 with 1,520 subs. Cancer. Nimblitz died of suicide on May 17, 2020. This story is a little interesting, though. He posted a scheduled link to a now deleted GitHub page named goodnight.rbxl. If you're not familiar with GitHub, any web designer uses GitHub. It's kind of like an open source. It's very confusing. Even if you're a web designer, it's confusing. But yeah, it's where creators for it's an open source like for web coding, different kind of coding, or even graphic design, graphic artist. So which read the following: if you're reading this, I've probably been missing for 2 weeks. I'm not alive anymore. On 5/17/2020, I took my own life. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. Thank you for being with me. The support and love and friends I've made have kept me going as long as I have. I definitely wouldn't be writing this if you weren't here for me. I wanted to keep going until I finished all my projects, but I won't ever be finished with them. Haha. My work is one of the few things I can find and joy. Thank you, Meerkat. That I can find joy in, and I'm glad I was able to share it with you. So that was like really sad. I like Mythbusters too. Phoenix got me into it. Chris Tuesdale. He was part of the band with Jesse McCartney. He was 35 years old. He died from COVID. He died on June 2nd, 2020 at 1,070 subs. Francisco died unknown. He was a cartoonist in Costa Rica. He had 515 subs. Death is unknown, but he died on April 8th of 2020. And finally, the last one that I know of is my buddy Iricozy, who died, I don't remember the exact date. He died of a heart attack. He was 41 years old, and he covered Making a Murder with me, and he covered true crime. And that was a really sad loss. Atika, that's another one. But did he die in 2020? I think he died in 2019. This is just people who died in 2020. Now I have a short little commercial, because you got to take a commercial break. And then we'll get into more of the crime stuff. But I can't believe there were 40 people that died since in 2020. You might be right now, and I'm not positive. Well, let me do it this way. Alright. Alright. So we have a commercial break.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a unique, personalized video for yourself as a gift for a special occasion or even your business, then check out the many characters and video styles from the Old Felt No Filter Gang. Let's meet the team now.
Why, hello there. I'm Nimrod the Frog.
Ooh, Ollie the Dog here, ready for fun. Australian.
Yowie.
Monsters! Hello! Midget fromage in the fridge here!
Break some news with me, Alex Fletcher.
And darlings, as you all know, I'm international drag queen celebrity Queen Miss Left Titter.
Yo! Jock here!
Oh, hello, Pencils. I'm therefore here checking in for duty. Oh.
And I'm game show host Larry Lips, ready to play!
And I'm Brittany from the Trailer Park.
So, what's stopping you? Hit that book now button and get your very own personalized video made today!
And that was your commercial. Sponsored by the Muppets. Alright, let's get into this. Let me check my email. Hold on. I guess I gotta check from my phone. Alright. Yep. Alright. What time is this? Oh, shit. Alright. Hold on. Hang on. All right, so I'm going to call DNA guy in a few minutes. His name is Glenn. I didn't see his message before, and I sent a message earlier that for some reason didn't send. So, all right. Here's one of the topics I want to talk about tonight. Give me a moment. Told you there'd be a couple little glitches here and there. It happens to the best of us. It's what happens when you're running a low-budget show by yourself. Alright, good night, Zero Filter. Alright, so everybody knows I've been covering the Sophie case. Trying to chat back to you, but can't chat. Huh? Where are you? He said he's in here. I don't see him. You're in my chat? Why am I not typing? What the fuck is up on my computer? Hang on. I don't know what's up with it. Let's try this again. I'm watching the feed, but I can't enter the chat. Oh. Alright. I'll call you in 5. All right, Glenn, you can't answer it because you can't get in? I mean, how do I talk to you? This is so weird. All right. Zoom. I don't want that. All right. All right. Hopefully this works. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if... All right, Glenn, if you're listening, I just dropped you a Zoom link. think it's just internet. It's whacked. Ugh. So I knew after the shit show over there, I wasn't getting people in here. There we go. What's up, stranger?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can
Perfect.
see you and hear you.
Okay. Hey.
What's
yeah,
up?
I could watch the whole feed, but I couldn't chat because I think I had to join.
No, you shouldn't have to. So what's up? How you been?
All right. So hold on here. I have to figure out how to do this. It's sending the audio through my computer, but I want it through my headphones. So let's see here.
You sound good on this end.
Yeah, you're going to end up getting feedback on my end. So let's see.
No,
I
you
think I know
sound
what I have to
clear.
do. No, I need to mute my internet. Let's see. I try that again.
You sound clear.
Oh, okay. You can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes? All right, perfect. Yeah, what was happening is it's playing back in the live feed about 10 seconds later, so then we get this weird echo. So I think we're good now.
We're good.
Okay.
So the email that I explained everything, you didn't get.
I did not get it. I have
No.
no idea what you're wanting to talk to me
All right.
about, but I heard your intro, and I didn't do DNA in the Darley Routier case. I did fingerprint evidence in that case.
Fingerprint evidence. Same thing.
Right. Well,
Still DNA.
no, quite different. And in fact, I'm already gonna have to, make sure that everyone understands I'm not a DNA expert. I know a lot about DNA, but I've actually never done DNA examinations. But I can certainly give some insight into how DNA works.
You're an expert in
Fingerprints.
fingerprint expert. My bad. I knew you were an expert. So everyone that knows Making a Murder, which I'm going to talk to you about too, I may eat my words, but for everyone else, who didn't follow me with Making a Murderer, they don't know who you are. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. All right. So I'm a forensic scientist. I've worked for a state lab for about 18 years or so, and in Minnesota. And I did fingerprints as my key discipline, but I also worked crime scenes and did bloodstain pattern analysis. I've always had an interest in forensic science, so academically and through research. So I'm fairly knowledgeable about things like firearms examinations, handwriting examinations, DNA, drug chemistry, toxicology. I haven't practiced them, but I know the academic background and theory behind them. So I can talk generally about that sort of thing. And I worked there for about 18 years and then left the laboratory to open my own private practice and take private cases around the country, usually working with public defenders, do a lot of defense work, trying to help people that really can't afford good forensics and, need someone to look at their case, who's, working for them, not the government. So I do a lot of that, and I also do a lot of training in the field. So that's what I'm currently doing right now.
Are you still doing a podcast with Eric?
Yeah, Eric and I, we have a podcast called the Double Loop Podcast. Double Loop Podcast. Double Loop is a fingerprint pattern. So we cover a lot of fingerprint issues, although we occasionally take on true crime cases, like, as you know, Making a Murderer. We have insight on the Stair case, which was the Peterson case out of North Carolina. It was also on Netflix. and pretty fascinating case. Recently, we looked into the Zodiac killer case. I was actually hired to look at some evidence from the Zodiac case out of 60s and 70s in San Francisco area, and get involved in some of these big cases from time to time.
Got to pay the bills because working with people for free and isn't paying them.
Well, I don't work for free.
Well.
I do some pro bono work for the Innocence Project, but I give a reduced rate for the public defender, and the court will pay me, but it's usually about half my usual rate. So,
Okay.
Try to do what I can for the criminal justice system.
Okay. How much experience do you have with child sexual abuse?
Wow, personally or professionally?
No, professionally.
Well, so from time to time, you would get cases that would come in and have to review. And very recently, I was involved for defense in a case in South Dakota. It was a federal case where someone was accused of having child pornography on his phone, and he was identified by his hand being in a photograph, or allegedly being in a photograph. So yeah, from time to time, either through image identification, fingerprints, hands, sometimes objects that are deemed to be quote unquote unique are observed in a photograph. In some of the child porn cases, and forensic scientists are asked to offer an opinion if that's the hand, the object, the person, whatever that might be.
Okay. So the reason I ask is you have to, if you're not familiar with the Stand by Sophie?
No, and it's probably good, because then I can just give you, an unadulterated opinion with respect to, forensic evidence. No, but I don't know any of the details of the case.
Okay. Are you still on Twitter?
Well, in theory, we are on Twitter. I don't really follow it. I'm just not a social media person.
No.
So we got people that do that, with our podcast, but allegedly I'm on Twitter, but
Okay.
I'm not on it.
So there is, I want to say, this movement called Stand by Sophie. We stand with Sophie, or Stand with Sophie, or something like that.
All right.
And it's about a little girl who's 9 years old, whose parents are in a tumultuous custody fight, and mom comes from money. Dad has a really good job. See, he seems to come from money too, but she comes from a long line of family money, old money. And this girl doesn't want to live with mom, but is court ordered, is with dad, and dad puts out a video of this girl going absolutely haywire, ballistic, that, she's not going with mom, and this one touches her, and that one touches her, and so on and so forth. Now, as a psych major, I have seen majority, obviously, there's no set thing, but how kids act if they were sexually molested, especially to the degree that this is being played. Do I think something happened to the girl? Absolutely. So here's my question about the DNA. So it seems that she's been to all these doctors, she's been through all this testing, and nothing has been written in stone yet. There's no testing that has come back, yes, positive, as far as I know. So my question is, in DNA testing, I wouldn't be fingerprints because that would be more death, but in DNA testing, wouldn't they test these things if everything happened that the way they're saying it happened, the way this little girl is saying it all happened to them? Wouldn't they do DNA testing to see if his semen is on her, if there's anything like that? I feel personally there's something big missing in this case. I don't know what, but I just feel there's something big missing. And as someone who went through a tumultuous custody fight for 6 years, I get where the parents are at. I mean, I absolutely get where they're at. But I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm not going to accuse the little girl of lying. And it definitely seems like something happened, but wouldn't these doctors do DNA? Wouldn't they do stuff that
Sure.
to more, outside of the normal, okay, well, she has a yeast infection or she has a tract infection or something. Wouldn't they be doing DNA testing on her to see if there's semen or anything out, or that only happens when you're dead?
No. All right. So yeah, let's back up a little. So when there is an alleged crime that has occurred, let's say some sort of sexual assault, yeah, I mean one of the first things they would do would be to do some sort of examination, either a forensic examination on the clothing, the girl, perhaps where she said it occurred, if it occurred. But we also have to be a little careful here about the meaning of DNA. So I'm going to back up even further.
Okay.
And generally speaking, with forensic evidence, there's really three important things here, right? All right. So the first one is what we call source level propositions. Source level. So we found DNA, but whose DNA is it? So it's the who of it. Whose DNA? The second thing, and I'll come back to that one. The second thing is, okay, we found DNA, but that's not really a question of whose DNA it is. We're not going to dispute whose DNA, but how and when did that DNA get there? We call that activity level. That's what's the manner and what action caused that DNA to get there. And then the third one is what we call the criminal level. Did a crime occur? So in a sexual assault case, you could find DNA and you could identify whose it is. And it could be, let's say, a mixture of the little girls and, maybe the fathers or mothers or whatever it might be. So then, that you identified whose DNA, but how did it get there? Did it get there through sexual activity? And if it got there through sexual activity, that's one thing. If it got there because you washed clothes in the washing machine together, which there are studies that show that DNA can come off of one person's clothes or underwear onto another person's, those studies exist. So that's another concern. How did it get there and when did it get there? And the last thing is, not in this kind of case, but in let's say, two consenting adults, if you find the DNA and it got there through sexual activity, did a crime occur? Well, it depends if consent was given or not for the activity. So that's a whole nother thing, that you have to go down that road. So in the case that you're describing, some of the big issues are, is there DNA? Did they test for it? And that's pretty standard that they would attempt to do some tests. Oh, that's normal. But even if they find DNA, the next big question regarding source is what we call subsource. Did the DNA come from semen? Did it come from blood? Did it come from skin cells? That's actually really hard to show where the DNA came from. You physically have to find sperm cells and take a sample of those to get DNA from that. And you can find DNA under lots of conditions, but it doesn't mean that you can always tell what biological material it came from. That's a harder thing to prove. In fact, if you recall in Making a Murderer, in season 2, that was a big discussion, was source of DNA from blood or saliva or chapstick or whatever. There's some issues around that. So these are all important questions. And now that I've sort of laid out this table for you, I have a few questions about this case. Are you saying that they never did any testing whatsoever, or they did testing but didn't find anything?
It depends who you ask, or it depends what you hear, but from what I've researched myself, nothing has been proven. And there's been heavy allegations. And I mean one most recent being, hey Jamie, one most recent being that she was raped by like 5 different men. And
how old is this girl?
9. So I would think that if that were true, they would absolutely have done testing.
Well, I mean, if they're going to charge anyone, yeah, I mean, they have to do testing. They really need, and well, I mean, there are some exceptions. So if the alleged action occurred, let's say weeks ago, there's no point in doing the testing. I mean, there's a pretty limited time frame in which you can do the test and have any success of finding evidence. So do you know if there's a time gap between, when this allegedly occurred versus the time frame of
about a week?
Well, that's not great.
About But I thought
Yeah.
DNA. All right, so then how come in murders and stuff DNA could last forever?
Well, so there's, I mean, a few things about that. DNA evidence, when properly collected and preserved, can last forever. So in many of these cases, as long as they collect it near to the time of deposition, let's say they find a rape and murder victim, they collect semen evidence, they freeze it and they can keep it forever and it will stay fine. But if they get to the body 6 months after it's happened, then not only will the DNA degrade, through heat, humidity, and just through general biological decomposition, and that can complicate things. So, that's a dead person who's not moving around. I mean, if you have a living person who's washing and still alive and turning over new skin cells, and wherever the DNA might be on that person, you can expect that just through normal movement and your daily biological processes, it's not going to last that long. I mean, again, there's a window of after about 3 days, pretty unlikely to recover anything. After 5 days, really unlikely to recover anything on a living person.
What about like on a wall?
Well, on a wall, it can be there for a long time. Again, the environmental conditions really matter. I've collected blood, that had dried on a wall that had been there for 10, 15 years. So it can be there for a long time.
So DNA is not as rock solid as people think it is?
Well, I mean, like any forensic evidence, there's limitations to it. Again, degradation is a big one, depending on, DNA on a wall. When you said wall, I assume the wall was indoors. And so not being exposed to rain and wind and extreme temperatures and sunlight and such. If you put that same DNA stain outside, in the sun for a couple of days, it'll degrade pretty quickly.
So if you're going to murder someone, do it outside.
That's always been my belief. You always dump a body outside. Don't bother burying it either. Let maggots and flies eat it to bones. Always best thing to do.
What about lye?
Lie's a good one because it also will.
That's what I said. So you want to kill someone? Just pour them lye on them. All right. So but would they test her?
Yeah. Normally you would go to what's called a SANE nurse. It's a sexual assault nurse at the hospital who would do these tests. They're usually trained specifically to make sure that they don't contaminate. They tend to have particular training because you're dealing with, a living victim. Whereas, all my crime scene work, I tended to deal with dead people. So I didn't have to have very good bedside manner. These SANE nurses are really unsung heroes. They have to deal with fairly traumatized people and have to also at the same time very, very technical and knowledgeable about how to collect DNA samples. They're going to stand up to, strong scrutiny in the courtroom. So normally, they go down to the hospital to have that done. Your local cop's not going to do that. That's not who you want doing that.
Okay. I don't know. There's something, you know me, I'm misinquisitive. There's just something about it that's not sitting right. And I'm not going to go against the entire universe and say that it didn't happen because I don't know if it happened. I feel like something happened, but as you know, you're divorced. Kids just make up things when they want to see the other parent, and kids do things, and it could be they got too far in over their head. The kid got too far in over her head, and I don't know, it's just weird. But it's that gut feeling, just like you guys have making a murderer. It's that gut feeling that something just isn't right. So I've been looking at all the court documents and that was the other thing. Does DNA tests and stuff end up in court documents or no?
Well, again, it depends. Most criminal cases are not public information when they're ongoing. There's a period of time afterwards where Freedom of Information Act can kick in and the public can have access to case information. But it's usually years later after a statute of limitations has passed on the case. And that's why for homicides, there isn't one. But, for some cases, it might take 10, 15 years before FOFA can kick in. So, yes, when charges are pressed against an individual or filed against an individual, then the government has a responsibility to explain the evidence that they have against that person. They have hearings, and that all comes out during those hearings and during transcripts. The government just can't have charges without explaining what the evidence is. They have to actually make a showing of it and say, here's what we have against the individual. Now, that's not a trial where it's presented and jurors weight that. So, yeah, I mean, if they did these tests, all right, so I'm thinking this through. If they did the test and they came back completely negative, they got nothing at all from these tests, they might still go ahead and charge a person or not, but you might not know if those tests were done. You'd have to actually see crime lab reports and find out if there were any tests that were collected. A lot of times that will come up because the person being accused, that's fairly, I would argue, probative to their case. If I'm being accused of rape, and the first thing I would say is, well, this needs to come out that you did some testing and it was negative, or you didn't find anything. So I would imagine that should have come out if it existed, at least for the accused, since I would argue that goes towards exoneration.
Because part of the other, half of this case is they have pretty much nailed this guy to a cross. The mother's boyfriend or whatever, they've already not charged him in the courts, but public, have already made this man guilty. And now the latest thing, he's on the run. No, I would be on the run too if half of Facebook and social media and everybody is telling me that, this guy's a child molester just because a 9-year-old said it. I mean, you're destroying this guy's life. I'd be on the run too. So, but according to what I found, there's no testing that has come back yet.
Yeah. Well, it's surprising, but if it was a pretty long time after the alleged event, then they may not have done the testing and said there's no point. It's just too unlikely to get anything. So, it's surprising in a serious case with a child that they wouldn't have at least attempted to, but I mean, if you're telling me it was a week later.
This last one was a week later, yeah.
If it was a week later, yeah, that's pretty much outside the window. You could probably do check the googly moogly internet and see what they say about that window. But a week's, in my experience, is pretty late and has a pretty low percentage shot of finding anything relevant.
All right. And someone wants to know, can you ask them to explain the new DNA technology with paraben nanolabs and snapshot?
So I'm not familiar with those terms particularly. I'm wondering if that's not rapid DNA technology. If the person's listening, is that referring to rapid DNA? And if it is rapid DNA, then I know a little bit about it. We hadn't validated rapid DNA when I was still in the lab. It was just a new thing, but it's exactly what it sounds. Normally DNA can take, doing the full DNA thing, can take easily a month to get any results back. And that's if everyone's working on it and there are no problems with the DNA. It takes a while to get it done. And it's because there's a lot of quality controls and there's a lot of, technical aspects to it. Rapid DNA is meant to give you something within, basically 24 hours, you're getting some results. And it's all new technology that's emerged.
GB, is that what you were talking about? Rapid DNA?
Yeah, I see the messages over there.
So I also have... wait for her answer. We never really know all the facts, though, because she did go to the doc. But nothing came from the doctor. Something doesn't sit right, Rebel. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to publicly say I don't believe her.
Can I interject something? So you said going to the doctor. So going to the doctor is different than, of course, going to a SANE and the sexual assault nurse. Remember, the doctor might investigate and look for bruising or damage or contusions or lacerations or tearing or any of that sort of thing. So that the doctor will look at that. If the doctor finds any evidence of that, they'll typically take pictures. They'll have some evidence for that. And then they will, of course, make sure that the sane nurse does some collection. So the doctor doesn't even do the collection, but does an examination of the potentially impacted or damaged, injured areas.
I don't know. I'm just Nadia, check
I see
check
what
your
she's
chat.
asking. Yeah, okay. So she's asking about DNA, where they can now begin to tell eye color and ethnicity and such from DNA. And yeah, this this is really on the fringes of my knowledge base, but it is true. In the past, DNA, the kind of DNA that we're most familiar with, like in making a murderer, we call that STR DNA. That's the kind of the common sort of DNA, and which is mixture of DNA from your mother and your father.
Mm-hmm.
This new sort of DNA, the old DNA was always what we called, it was the area on a DNA, it was junk DNA. It didn't code for anything. So, DNA as it is can code for certain things and code for proteins that can affect certain things. But it was really this junk area of DNA that didn't do anything that we know of. But yet there was a lot of randomness from person to person. The randomness is what allows us to differentiate the different DNA. But because it didn't code for anything specific, you couldn't look at that DNA and tell anything about the person. Couldn't tell anything about their medical history, eye color, hair color, whatever. And in fact, when DNA came along, there was a lot of concern about Big Brother having access to our DNA profiles and all this. And one of the first arguments is, hey, this doesn't do anything. It doesn't tell you anything about the person. It's not invasive or intrusive because it's just random junk DNA in every person. Some of the new DNA that they're looking at, however, actually does code for proteins that can go to eye color, hair color, and other things. And yes, and can even give indications of ethnicity. And now we're getting to a really weird ethical area, because now this DNA information can tell you quite a bit about the person, which is great in a criminal case, because now you can get some information about the individual potentially. Do they have blue eyes? Are they, Caucasian with blonde hair and blue eyes, or African American, dark hair, dark eyes?
I've got to interrupt you 1 second.
Sure.
Now there's technology that can change your eye color. So, they're coming into this new technology that I read about that can actually change your eye color. What happens with your DNA then? So, criminal, something to ask Eric, but a criminal says, I have DNA profile came up brown eyes, but you're looking at somebody that has bright blue eyes, and they're not contacts.
Or they've changed their hair color through dye. I mean, this is all, and that's why I said it's a very controversial area, because this is supposedly going to be good information to help in the investigation, but there's always a potential to misinterpret, misuse, or misunderstand the information that you get. And obviously, exactly as you say, someone can wear colored contacts, change their hair color pretty easily, and escape detection. So it's always this technology trying to chase the next thing. But I think there is a real concern that these DNA profiles that go in databases, what if they give you information about medical history or such? Can insurance companies use that information against you to deny you insurance coverage? And that's always been the concern about DNA information and databases, is how it can be used for evil, if you will, against people.
Okay. All right. And now finish what you were saying, because I know I interrupted. I just thought of that.
Oh, that was actually,
okay.
I finished that.
Okay.
It's still emerging. It can tell us something about, the potentially the donor of the DNA, but it's still really new technology. And I don't know that it's gone through some challenges or rigorous challenges in the court system yet. I mean, just like the 23andMe, like the Golden State Killer and some of that stuff, the familial matching. This is all still really new, and I'm still waiting for a serious challenge that goes up to the Supreme Court, and we get some sort of Supreme Court decision on the admissibility or legality of that kind of evidence.
Yeah, GB just said that rapper T's something's wife Tamika got her iris color changed from brown to blue. She had done it in Africa. I knew it could be done, I don't know how much it cost or anything like that, but yeah, I've been reading about it. I'm like, that would be nice. No more contacts. And before I get into making a murder, I do have a couple of other questions. Fingerprints.
Sure.
I remember you guys saying that fingerprints were the least important or the least credible. I forgot. Or handwriting analysis. I keep mixing them up.
No, I think I know what you're referring to. I think what you're asking is, in the scheme of reliability, which are the most reliable forms of evidence? I think we had a conversation about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the, I don't know if listeners know this, but we had you on our podcast and we asked you lots of generic questions because it's always helpful for us as forensic scientists to have an understanding of what lay people think of forensic science. So that makes us better witnesses in the courtroom. What do we need to explain? What sounds too technical and we need to dumb down a bit? How do we explain this to lay people who end up making pretty big decisions? So I asked you a series of questions I often ask people is, so if you were ranking, forensic science disciplines, what would you assess the reliability of fingerprints at? And I don't know if you remember your answer, but I remember your answer.
Do you?
I do. And you would put it somewhere between 90%. You thought it was right around 90%, the reliability of fingerprints, right around 90 or so, no more than 95%. Does that sound accurate?
Uh-huh.
Yep. And then when I asked you about DNA, you put that at about 95%, maybe as high as 99% is what you would say.
Because that's what's force-fed to us. DNA is 100%, and, well, not 100, but 99% accurate. You're never going to get away with murder because DNA is done, and that's what I remember.
No, and you had the insight to bring up, but, even if it's accurate, people can screw it up and contaminate it and stuff, and that's exactly right. And that's how you have to think about these things, that even if the person making the decisions can be really accurate, there's plenty of sources of error. So when it comes down to forensic evidence, most forms of forensic evidence, it all depends on what are the characteristics that were left behind, because I can tell you that I can have a very clear fingerprint with a lot of characteristics. And no matter how subjective you might think that is, it can actually be more accurate and better evidence than a highly degraded mixture of DNA that has been mishandled and not stored properly by an investigator. I'd much rather have the fingerprint evidence or even handwriting evidence at that point over a mixture of DNA that has not been handled appropriately and may have even been contaminated by somebody. So it all comes down to, how clear is this evidence? How ambiguous is this evidence? Has it been contaminated or handled appropriately? Those are the questions that really matter in assessing the reliability of evidence. So one of the things that surprised us was you ranked handwriting quite low and put it quite low, whereas actually handwriting is it's not the highest, but it's probably closer to 85 to 90% accurate when handwriting analysts do that. And they actually do a pretty good job. I think you had it closer to 50. And then you had bite marks around 90%. And bite marks are actually the worst of the forensic disciplines. They're the least accurate. There was a study a few years ago where they gave a bunch of odontologists images and asked them, is this a human bite mark or not? And I believe most of the experts that participated in the study couldn't even tell accurately if it was a human bite mark to begin with. Yeah, they couldn't even tell if it was a bite. They couldn't even recognize their own evidence as actual evidence. That's what was so shocking. And then once you started giving them comparisons, they did pretty terrible on it. But I'll make the same point here. What's bad about bite marks is not the bite mark evidence itself. It's usually the recording medium, which is skin and bruising. Skin's a terrible recording medium. If you get Ted Bundy with really distinctive teeth biting into a cheese mold, a block of cheese, that's going to be a great recording medium. And a bite mark under that condition is probably going to be pretty accurate compared to someone with good teeth, access to good dental care, braces, and such. And so their teeth are like everybody else's teeth, and they're biting into skin, which is a terrible recording medium. Those kind of conditions are terrible they're rife with error. I mean, look at the Innocence Project. They've had so many people exonerated on bad bite mark evidence.
Okay, but teeth are like fingerprints, and everyone's got one set of teeth. I
True.
don't, Nadia, I'm with you. I don't understand how teeth marks, like handwriting, I can change my handwriting. I can write completely different by writing with the other hand. Like if I'm a lefty, if I write righty, you could not tell it's me. I do everything differently.
Well, interestingly enough, handwriting people, if they suspect you're using your offhand, they'll get samples of you writing with your offhand, and it's much harder for you to hide characteristics of your writing in your offhand. That's actually one of the things that they do because it's a common thing. So they will get exemplars of both hands, and they're actually really good at identifying people with their offhand. But side note, so your point with teeth is taken. Yeah, I mean it's well taken with teeth, but I mean keep in mind a few things. We have, in today's technology, I mean, lots of people have their teeth fixed, and people have really good teeth today. And that the variation, that's really what you want to zero in on. What's the variability from person to person? How much do they vary? Well, there's so much focus on odontology and orthodontics of trying to fix your teeth to be perfect like everyone else's. You're actually removing the variability and making them less distinct from person to person. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, even if you do have a really good, unique set of teeth, you have to be able to record those characteristics. And skin is not a good recording medium. Keeping in mind, remember, they showed skin bite marks to people who had been doing this their entire career, and they couldn't even tell if they were actual bite marks or not, or human or animal. So, I mean, that's pretty telling about how bad bite marks on skin are.
So it's funny that you say that. If I were to bite somebody a year ago, before I got my teeth fixed, my bottom teeth were jacked.
Yeah.
Now that my teeth are nice and straight, they couldn't connect it to me.
It would be more difficult to connect it to you. That's the thing. It would be less distinctive. And maybe, again, there would be less distinct points to go, look how distinct these teeth are.
Interesting. All right. They got Ted Bundy on a teeth imprint.
Yep, and that's a really good example of, because he bit into, I think it was cheese or some food or something, and left behind a really good impression in a hard medium of his teeth. And he had pretty jacked teeth, too. I mean, they, at one point called the snaggletooth killer. And those teeth were not only distinct, but you had a good recording medium. And I think one of your listeners mentioned about DNA being left behind. The DNA left behind in the bite mark is so much more valuable than the teeth mark, usually in skin, when the killer's biting skin.
I think I asked you this, but I got to ask you again because I saw a movie on it. If someone shaves off their fingerprints, they
like the movie Seven.
Is that what movie it was? But they file down their fingerprints. Can that be done?
Yeah, it can be done. It's painful, and they'll grow back in 30 days. It's about how long it takes for your skin to heal. Unless you go down far enough and remove what's called the regenerating layer of skin. There's several layers of skin. You have to go down pretty far. And if you do that, then you'll create a scar. And I think I might have even told you the story of John Dillinger, who tried to hide his fingerprints. So he took an awl and poked giant gashes in the middle of his fingers and then poured sulfuric acid in that hole to try to burn his fingerprints.
Did it work?
He created permanent scars, and he actually made his fingers more distinctive because not everyone has scars like that on their fingers. So he actually made it easier to identify him later after scarring his fingers.
So it really can't be done.
No, and then the other thing that you're forgetting is that we can identify you just as easily on your joint prints and your palm prints. And you'd have to destroy your entire palm, your entire hand. Basically, you have to cut off your hands, and then you won't leave behind any good fingerprints or palm prints.
Now, what about footprints?
Yep, so those are in the same vein. They have friction ridges. They are just like your palms, and they are very identifiable. I've had several cases where someone walked barefoot after killing someone, stepped in their blood, and left behind a good bloody toe print at the scene. I've had those cases too.
And Nani wants to know, I've kind of a weird question, but how reliable is blood spatter?
So blood spatter is one of those domains that they're just now starting to do the tests. It's not as accurate as fingerprints or DNA. There's a lot of subjectivity involved in it, and also involves a lot of case information, and that's where things get a little difficult. With fingerprints, I don't have to know anything about a case. I can tell you if they match or not. With DNA, they don't need to know anything about the case. They can tell you if it matches or not. With bloodstain pattern evidence, you need to usually see scene photographs. You need to know positions of things. You need to know what sort of injuries. You might need an autopsy report. So you tend to get a little more involved in case details, and it's a little harder to remove yourself from things that could be biasing. So they recognize that there's some danger in bloodstain pattern analysis, and that, as they're actually now doing some of the first testing, believe it or not, 100 years later, just now testing how accurate these examiners are under controlled conditions, and finding they're not as accurate as fingerprints or some of the other disciplines. Fingerprints, firearms, DNA are all much more accurate than bloodstain pattern analysis. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of ambiguity.
Nana, I was thinking the same thing. Can't you tell if blood spatter, it's spatter. That's why my New York comes out, spatter. Can't you tell if blood spatter is from swinging a bat or a machete or anything like that?
All right, so that's a common mistake that rookie CSIs make when they start learning blood spatters.
Are you calling me a rookie CSI?
No. I mean, like, literally, like rookies who are new to the field. They sometimes will attempt to determine one of two things. They'll look at spatter patterns and try to say what kind of weapon created it. Mm-hmm. And so they'll say a bat or, in your example, a machete. And that's really dangerous, because if you don't know how many blows occurred, for example, one blow of a bat could produce the same kind of pattern as 3 blows of a machete. And it also depends on how much blood you hit and so on. So that's actually a really poor indicator. What you can often tell is whether or not the blood came from what we call an impact site, where, like, say, hit the person's head that was bleeding, versus was it flung off of the bat. Those are different kinds of stains that hit an object and get flung, or if they fling off of an object. The distinction is, one's called an impact stain. The other is called cast-off stain. It's being cast off from the weapon. But you can't tell the shape of the weapon. I've had trainees try to do that. They'll look at the shape of it and go, oh, that looks like a hand. And it wasn't a hand, it was a hammer. And, they will look at these different kinds of things and try to infer what the shape of the weapon was. And it's actually really dangerous. One of the most well-known cases where this happened was do you remember the show The Fugitive? Mm-hmm. And it was, right, from the 1960s, mm-hmm. The one-armed man, and then the movie with Harrison Ford, right? Yeah. So in the original case where that happened, the doctor, whose name was Sam Shepard, in the 50s in Ohio, he was accused and convicted of killing his wife because the coroner that showed up with no training in this whatsoever looked at the pillow and saw the shape of what he thought was the bloody murder weapon, and he described it as a doctor's tool, and he described it as a sort of doctor's tool. And so who else would have killed the wife with a doctor's tool but the doctor, Dr. Shepard? And, I've seen that pattern, and there's no indication whatsoever that it was, in fact, a tool, a medical tool, or I think he called it a surgeon's tool. And that then, of course, was the noose that hung Dr. Shepard to convict him. But it happens surprisingly more than it should in cases where experts attempt to say what the kind of weapon was that would have caused those patterns or those stain shapes. And it's really dangerous to do that.
You mean like on the case that we disagree with about the staircase? Because you believe he's innocent, right?
No.
Oh,
I totally believe he's guilty.
Oh, okay.
But I've seen the bloodstain pattern evidence in that case that was not shown in the documentary because my mentor actually worked that case.
Mm-hmm.
And no, there is evidence that was left out of the documentary that was pretty convincing if you had seen it.
I think he's guilty. I always did.
Yeah, I mean, having seen the evidence, I believe he's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least I believe she was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he is the murderer, and has all the motive and all the reason to. But yeah, I don't believe it was an accidental fall at all, because there are some stain patterns that can't be reconciled except through her being hit on the back of the head while trying to get up.
And the owl.
And the owl, right? Yes. The owls are not what they seem.
So you had mentioned, because I know you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours.
We could, and we would probably bore all your listeners, but I can talk about forensics forever, yeah, for sure.
But I have to pick up my son in 45 minutes.
No problem.
You said you were working on Zodiac since the last time we talked. What's going on with that?
I did. I was in a documentary. So if your listeners have access to Hulu or FX, the name of the documentary was The Most Dangerous Animal of All. It was based on a book that came out, a true crime writer who thought they had solved the Zodiac case.
Okay.
I don't want to give it away, but it's a great documentary. I mean, I actually filmed in this documentary. I looked at a very small chunk of the evidence, but I didn't know anything about what the producers were doing, and I was blown away. Absolutely blown away when I watched it. Like, I was shocked because it's a real page turner. Yeah. And then when you get to about episode 3, they completely flip the entire script on you. It's a really good documentary to watch.
I'll have to check it out. What's the name of it?
The Most Dangerous Animal.
And it's on Hulu?
Yep, on Hulu. That comes from one of the Zodiac letters. And if you really enjoy it, you can listen to our podcast episode too on the Double Loop Podcast.
Absolutely. And do you think he's dead?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
All right. Recently saw an episode of 2020 where they can now get mitochondrial DNA from a hair strand without a root. Is new?
Oh, no, that all right, so that goes back a long time. Back in probably the mid-90s, they started coming up or developing a technology called mitochondrial DNA. Mm-hmm. So mitochondrial DNA you can get from any kind of, well, normally when you talk about DNA, it's what we call nuclear DNA. So it's coming from the nucleus. So you have to have, white blood cells, for example, or skin cells or such. Red blood cells don't have a nucleus, by the way. Interesting factoid. And so there are certain things like hair, like the shaft of your hair, or bone cells, or certain kinds of fingernails, for example. None of that has a nucleus, but they realize that they still have cells, and there's something called a mitochondria in those cells, or mitochondrium. And in that mitochondrium, there's a different kind of DNA, and that DNA allows you to basically identify a family line. It all goes back to the mother. Normal nuclear DNA is the mother and the father. Mm-hmm. Mitochondrial DNA is the maternal line. Mm-hmm. So they actually dug up bones, for example, on this guy's farm who claimed to have the body of Jesse James buried on his farm. And they were able, through ancestry, to determine that, in fact, they were the bones of at least an ancestor in that Jesse James family. Whether or not they were his bones or not, that's a different story. But your listener's right. You can actually get mitochondrial DNA from just a hair without a root, or bones that have been burned. In some big cases where they burned the bones completely and there is no DNA at all left, they can go in and extract DNA, mitochondrial DNA from those bones. The main point is it's not as discriminating as nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA, you can pretty much identify the person if you get a full profile, as long as they don't have an identical twin. With mitochondrial DNA, the best you can identify is a family. Siblings siblings that share the same mother would all have the same mitochondrial DNA.
And there's no shared DNA for dad?
Nope. There's nothing like that. It's completely through the maternal. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. Yes, there is. For dad, there's something called YSTRs. So that's for the male DNA. It's particular DNA that's passed through the Y chromosome. So as long as you don't have a Y chromosome, then yes, there is a male-specific DNA. And they often will use that kind of DNA in sexual assault cases where that might be the only kind of DNA they can get access to.
And someone brought up Darley's guilt.
Boy, you know, I gotta tell you, because I watched your episode. I don't remember the guy, but he was in prison, I think, and he knew Darley or grew up with her. Brian, okay. I watched that episode. I learned more about the Darley Routier case in that than I ever knew about it. And I worked that case. So the thing is, when I work a case, when I'm actually like involved in a case, I tend not to learn the facts of the case or the details because I don't want to compromise my conclusions. I just want to analyze the evidence that I'm given. So in a case like that, actually, I really didn't know that much about the case because I was simply asked, look at this fingerprint. Does it match her or not, or Darren or the children? And then there's something that we've never talked about, but I was asked to look at evidence that was not collected by the crime scene team, but was left at the house. And there are all these reports about it, but we have to save that for a whole nother episode. I was asked to look at some evidence that was left behind at the house. I think it was on the back door leading out of the kitchen. There was a bloody impression that was left behind that wasn't analyzed by the police. That's the one I was asked to look at. And then another latent impression that was on the door that was powdered. So I had my conclusions and wrote my report back in 2003 on that. That was my first private case I worked. But I didn't know any of the details in that case. So I honestly have no opinion if she's guilty or not because I really don't know any of the details. And it would probably be inappropriate for me to say if I ever did develop an opinion, because I'm still focused on just the fingerprint evidence in that case.
But one of the things that you talked about a minute ago, which I thought of the Darley case, was the cast off and the way that they said the knife. But so let's say you have two experts tell you completely different stories. One says, yes, it came from this way. Another renowned expert said, no, it did not. Yeah. How do you know who's right?
Yeah, so I have looked at the bloodstain pattern evidence in the case and some of the micro trace, the window cutting fibers on the knife and such. So I know a little bit about the forensic evidence. I just didn't know any case details. So yeah, and I know the bloodstain experts in that case, and you're exactly right. They have two different opinions. One said this, one said that, and that's not uncommon in bloodstain pattern evidence. The Peterson case is the staircase episode is another good example of competing opinions. It's not uncommon for that in BPA. A really fascinating case that you should look at is the David Camm case. That's CAMM out of Indiana. Okay. Absolutely fascinating case.
Someone write that down. David Camm.
Yeah, you got to write that one down. Look into that. It is an insane case.
Why?
Absolutely insane. Because you had 8 blood spatter experts in that one. 4 said one thing and 4 said the other, and it's just insane. Your listeners maybe even know this case, but it's crazy. You will end up going down a rabbit hole. You won't believe it.
Really?
Yeah.
Nadia said I can help you, Glenn. Guilty.
Well, I really don't know. I just don't know the details, but well, I mean, that's what jurors said. So ultimately, that's what matters.
Not really.
Well, I mean, she's on death row, so it kind of matters.
Yeah, but there's 20,000 people in jail that shouldn't be.
True, but I never saw all the evidence in the case. I never heard it, and that was their responsibility to convict her. So they did. Whether or not it's right or wrong, they did.
Glenn, my friend, I now have an almost rhetorical question for you. Mm-hmm. And you know what it's about. Here is my question. So, Catherine Zellner puts together this beautiful presentation for the last, 4 years? Mm-hmm. Every expert in the world took top experts, DNA, blood. I mean, fingerprints. She had every major expert in the world. and she was going to get him out. They're still fucking sitting there. So my question to you, and I'm not going to say he's guilty. I'm not. But my question to you is, with all the experts, and if you don't know, guys, we're talking about making a murderer. With all the experts or alleged experts that she's had on this case, I mean, still undeniable she is the supreme of getting exonerations.
Yeah, no doubt.
Based on fingerprints and DNA and all, mostly DNA, actually. So if all these alleged experts have not been able to do anything, there's two reasons. Either A, she lied, or B, the court is that corrupt, or C, it's just fallen somewhere on deaf ears.
Yeah, I don't remember if this came up in our discussions or not, but, you know, as I said, I've worked a lot with the Innocence Project, and I know I know many of their top people pretty well, and I was listening to a presentation by one of them, and she said something that really resonated. She said that, you know, in the United States, we have this amazing criminal justice system, you know, that is meant to be, yes, adversarial, but really you're, you know, innocent until proven guilty. You know, if you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Compared to the rest of the world, we have this incredible, you know, insightful criminal justice system.
That's as old as can be.
Yeah. But the problem is, and she's so right about this, once you are convicted, there is zero recourse for you once you're convicted. The system is all about the conviction and nothing about post-conviction. And once you are convicted, you've lost all your rights, you've lost access, you often have your assets and money, you know, acquired by the government, or you spent it defending yourself. And there's just simply no recourse. There are so limited actions for you afterwards. And the system isn't really meant to fix errors that occur. And that's really the problem I think you're getting at, Laura, is that if in these cases, if they were wrongfully convicted, why isn't it effective? And the problem is that actually the laws around, and the rights, laws, and resources around fixing post-convictions just simply really don't exist in this country. It's not designed for post-conviction fixing. It's designed to convict the guilty.
So you admitting that they might be innocent?
Oh, look, that's why I work for the Innocence Project, is that I've been involved in cases where I know people were convicted either on weak evidence, bad evidence, false evidence, and so on. I don't think that's the case in the Stephen Avery, murder. The murder of Teresa Hallback. I don't believe that. That's not one where I think there was a wrongful conviction, but Brendan Dassey, I actually do believe should not be sitting in jail.
You cannot convict one without the other. You can't say Brendan's innocent and Stephen's guilty, because without Brendan, Stephen would not be sitting in jail.
Well, I don't believe that Brendan was involved in the murder. I do believe he was likely, I just say likely, involved in the cleanup afterwards. That's my view, because of, again, some evidence that suggests he probably was involved in the cleanup part of it. But it just doesn't make sense to me. Whereas Avery could have been convicted without Dassey at all. I mean, Dassey never had to open his mouth. Avery, I believe, would have been convicted anyway. I believe that.
Nope.
I mean, from the bullet, Teresa's DNA, the blood in the vehicle, the fact that she seemed weird about wanting to go to his place. He had asked for her specifically that day. I mean, all the little weird things, and then finding her bones on the property. I think he would have been convicted personally.
Do you not know what a setup is? Come on now.
I don't know that anybody in that entire documentary was smart enough to set anybody up, frankly. I'm sorry. They were not the brightest of bulbs.
Okay, I'll go with that. But the bones may have been found on the property, but nothing was done right. There was no DNA in the house. There was none of her fingerprints in the house. None of it made sense.
Oh, no, I think we agreed when we were on your episode with you there that it was mishandled. They got involved and didn't need to be involved. The state, I don't know if you knew this, but the state offered to do those crime scenes. The state would have come in as a neutral entity. There's no reason for the local sheriff to have ever been involved or show up and jeopardize. And their actions absolutely jeopardize the integrity of those scenes, no doubt. Having worked scenes myself, I'm very sensitive to let's make sure that we've got no competing interests here, no conflict of interest. It's shocking how that was handled, and I believe that the prosecution's theory and explanation of what happened, the murder in the house, rape in the house, I don't think any of that happened at all. I really don't. And I agree with you. There would have been blood, fingerprints, whatever else. There would have been something in the house. He was not smart enough or cleanly enough to clean up a scene like that. So I agree that the prosecution's theory was terrible. I agree that the cops mishandled it. I agree that his initial defense attorney was a criminal and probably should have been locked up for terribly misrepresenting his clients. I mean, all the things. You couldn't have had more exampmples of what not to do in a
That's very true.
in a homicide. 100% agree with you on all of that. I still think he's guilty.
Damn. But you think Brandon's innocent?
I don't think he's innocent. I think he was involved in the cleanup. I don't think that he should. I think his interrogation was unlawful, and the statements made were unlawful, and I don't think he should be sitting in prison.
See, my biggest issue with it is, as much as I know how fucked up the law can be and the justice system and how bad it can be, I still say with all the exonerations that she's done, something should have moved already. I understand a corrupt court. Something should have moved for somebody with all of these experts. And with her track record, and nothing's happened.
The one that stands out to me is actually, again, Dassey's case. I mean, he had, what's her name, Laura Nystrom or Laura Norrider.
Nyrider.
She was amazing. She was so effective. And then her and Keith, both were really fantastic on what they did once they were in the federal system. It's still shocking to me that they couldn't get that overturned. And all the weird, first they got, a favorable opinion, but then, then it was overturned and appealed, and then they wanted to meet with the full, group. It was just bizarre how it was fought every step of the way, and it was always an uphill battle. And it wasn't surprising that eventually they lost that. And really, they were fantastic on the legal front. There wasn't any smoke and mirrors. And I mean, Kathleen's style is very showy and very, I had some issues with some of the things that she approached, whether or not it was true or not. What they did on the legal front was pretty incredible. And yet, like you said, unable to move the ball an inch.
See, my biggest problem with it is, even if she couldn't get it in the courts, in her motions, she really did not put in about the testing that she did. Did it go on a Netflix documentary? Yeah. Part 2 or part 3. But
it's not in her documents or motions?
And this is why I always said she sucks.
Really?
None of her evidence of all the things that she allegedly did and all the testing, every single motion that has been filed back has had almost none of it. Nothing to talk about the hood, the blood, nothing. I'm like, this isn't right. I'm like, this is why I said she sucks. And it sucks because Eric Cozy, I don't know if you guys knew Eric Cozy.
No.
He passed away. He was the one I argued with the most on Making a Murderer. And, every time I'd read an order, I'm like, where is the juice? This is all like legal mumbo jumbo. Show me the juice. Show me where, here's what this testing happened. And this is what happened when we tested this. Everything went to a Netflix documentary, and the whole order was
that's
fluff.
surprising. I to be fair, I never did read that gigantic motion that she plopped down, in the office there. I remember on that episode, she just filed that big motion. I never read the whole thing. I read some excerpts of it, but I assumed that the forensic evidence was in there. That's actually pretty surprising.
Nope.
And I again don't disagree with you. That might have been a pretty fatal mistake to not raise the issue of new evidence. Of course you would want to bring up new evidence.
She had a different excuse about why it couldn't be done. And I understand how the court, yeah, she is a badass lawyer, but she really, I go back to my original thing. She couldn't do anything for him. Maybe because of the system, whatever. But every time I read an order, I'm like, where's the forensics? Where's, like, and everyone telling me, no, she couldn't do it this way, or she couldn't. Bullshit. She's not filing a different order. Like, where are the forensics? It all went to the Netflix show, the part 3. But there's nothing in here that tells me, other than something that a Reddit guy discovered, that something, I don't know, it was this whole long explanation about DNA testing or DNA here, there. I don't remember it exactly. It was a couple of years ago, but that was the only thing that was in it, and she didn't even test that. That was some Reddit guy who found it, and I was like, there's nothing in here. It's just weird to me.
Well, and again, it may have been a strategy. They may have had a very specific legal strategy, and again, for better or worse. Again, like I said earlier, the system's not designed to correct errors once they happen post-conviction. It's not designed for that, and that's a real significant flaw in the system.
It just makes me think, is he guilty? And that's why she couldn't include all the forensics in there, because you would think forensics and case law would be the things filing in that motion, and nope, it wasn't. It was fluff. A lot of fluff, and like when you get a divorce, they say don't bash your ex. You there to say that.
I don't think anyone had to tell me not to do that. But, okay.
Well, most of us, no. They always say you're not there to bash your ex. You're there to make yourself be the better parent. Custody, not divorce. So that's what I feel like with this. Like, all she did was bash the other side and point out Ken Kratz's bullshit instead of, and then, instead of actually pointing out why he's innocent. And that's one thing I walked away from. It's one of the reasons I walked away from the case. It's just, it was all fluff, and people are buying into all this fluff. I'm like, it's all fluff. It's bullshit. So, you thought fluff meant something else? No, fluff is like just fluff.
It can mean something else.
Oh, yeah. I had one more question for you. Then I gotta go to Phoenix. Do you guys have any questions?
Did you say you had to go to Phoenix?
No, I have to go pick up my son. My son's name is Phoenix. He had a football game tonight. And it was like 8 o'clock.
From there.
No, it was like 8 o'clock. I'm like, why is Phoenix not coming in here asking me what's for dinner? Well, now I know why. He wasn't home.
Did I answer all your DNA questions? Did we
yes.
get through that? Okay.
You definitely did. But there was one, Scott Peterson. That's what I wanted to ask you.
Ah, that's a fun case.
So, what do you think?
He was guilty.
You do think he's guilty? Hands down.
I think he had a great attorney. I don't think you could have gotten a better attorney than Mark Garrigus.
You would think, but he failed him
amazing.
Too. He didn't even call up a witness.
No, Mark actually talks about that. Mark wrote a book about that. I don't know if you have the book or know much about it, but Mark discussed some of the strategies involved, and he had some very good reasons why he did what he did. But I don't know. I thought the evidence was, well, I mean, ironically, it's a case without a ton of evidence, but yet the evidence that was there, I thought was pretty good. And I didn't see him. I don't see anyone else that would make any more sense than him. It all felt right.
Fair enough. What's the name of your podcast?
It's the Double Loop Podcast.
They get all sorts of experts on it.
Yeah, and we review some of these cases too, and we talk about, we'll interview forensic experts or people who did some of the actual crime scene work or such. But remember, a lot of what we talk about is about fingerprints, so it's very technical sometimes. But sometimes we talk about other true crime cases. One of my favorite series to talk about is the OJ case. I really enjoy looking at what happened in the OJ case, Making a Murderer, the Staircase, the David Cam case, that's the CAMM case, Zodiac Killer, Golden State. We look at some well-known cases if you're interested in checking a deep dive out.
Golden State Killer.
Oh,
Convicted
sorry,
at 74 years old. The guy's life is over anyway. I mean, he's gonna be dead soon anyway. So he got away with tons. So back to Scott Peterson for a second.
Sure.
So you think he's 100% guilty? He wasn't tried by the
Public?
Public opinion.
No, I definitely think he was tried by the public, but I don't know that the public got that one wrong. It's been years actually because that was what, 2003?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's been years since I've looked at that, but if there's something that has come to light, please, let's discuss. Tell me what you think is a problem in the case.
Thanks, Just Beck. I think he was convicted and tried by the public because forensically, where's the evidence? There was not forensic evidence that he did this. Nancy Grace, and I'm not saying he's innocent, but I'm not saying he's guilty. If I want to go by what I feel, well, Casey Anthony's guilty, so is OJ. They both got out. They both escaped it for different reasons. But forensically, Casey Anthony should be in jail. Forensically, Scott Peterson should not.
So, I didn't they find something on the boat? I thought there was some evidence on the boat, blood, or wasn't there a blood stain or
all
something on the boat?
circumstantial.
What's that?
Everything they found on Scott Peterson is circumstantial, which is a whole nother ball game because I don't believe it's circumstantial.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they find like a stain or something
Nope.
of her blood on the boat?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Letha said yes, there was evidence on the boat. I remember there was no evidence on the boat.
Okay. I seem to recall evidence on the boat, but I don't remember if it was particularly compelling or not, but I thought it was blood or hair or something.
The cement came from Nancy Grace did this whole thing on the cement, and the cement turns out that Nancy Grace was wrong. And that the cement really wasn't.
Would it be the first time? That's for
I
sure.
know. I know that. Yeah, everyone, she sold the public that it was the cement, but it really wasn't the cement. There was nothing wrong with the cement, and it seemed like he used it for his driveway. But I don't know. I just feel like even if there was hair on the boat, can't that go back to he lives with his wife and he's going to have a comb or a hairbrush that she did his laundry and it may have fallen off. So if her hair was on the boat, come on, give me a break. That's
true. No, that's actually a very good point. In fact, you were going back to activity level.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't her hair have come from something in the home that he transferred, brought it to the boat on his pant leg, and it transferred to the boat then? Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a good way to look at it.
Because when you're pregnant, you lose even more hair. Your hair comes out a lot more when you're pregnant. She was almost at the end.
Really? I don't remember that. My wife was the exact opposite. Her hair started growing thicker when she was pregnant, and after she had the baby, it was the exact opposite.
Oh, my hair all fell out. No, I mean, it didn't all fall out, but I think they found something on the boat. But that's what I'm saying. Not with blood and masking tape. Huh? There was no blood with masking tape.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe if we talk sometime again, I'll do a little deeper dive, and maybe I'll come in with more information. I'll take a look at reports and forensic reports and evidence, and I'll see. But I remember at the time, and I remember being convinced enough, seeing parts of the trial on court TV, going, no, that all seems right. Besides his actions and, like you said, kind of OJ like weird stuff he was doing with the mistress fleeing, dyeing his hair and all that.
Casey Anthony, guilty or innocent?
Don't know. I actually don't know that case.
What?
I mean, I know the case. I don't know the evidence in that case. I only know about the cadaver scent issue. That's the only thing that I remember about that, is that one of the big things was the cadaver dog hit right on the trunk, that there had been a dead body in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mother even said it is, I don't know. I know she's guilty, just like I know OJ's guilty. And forensically, there was enough to, what, you don't think OJ's guilty?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I know he is. I know this for a fact.
All right.
I shouldn't say a fact, but I believe this strongly. That would be bad. I believe that strongly.
Yeah, it was in between hair pliers. I get that. It was in between the rusty pliers. I get that. However, any person, like, I'm sure if I ended up dead, I'm sure somewhere in either a tool somewhere, you'll find my ex-boyfriend's hair. One hair. Or something. Like when they used a tool or they were fixing something. Like, you're gonna find something. So one hair and a rusty plier could have transferred right from his shirt. So that's why I never bought that.
Sure. I'd like to go back and look at that one before I guess I
Let's do it.
I commit too much to the evidence, but I remember not having any heartburn at the time. But I'll have to go back and look. And I remember Garrigus talking about in his book and him saying the same thing about the evidence being flimsy or, like you said, non-existent. But I didn't quite buy that either. That seemed to be his interpretation of it. But I wonder if it was quite literal, that there really wasn't any.
I don't think there was.
I'll go back and take a look.
Everything was circumstantial. And we know forensic people don't like circumstantial evidence. Just like I don't.
Well, I mean, we get what we get, and we offer an opinion on whatever we get. We don't know if it's circumstantial or not.
Well, if there's no forensics, then it's circumstantial.
Well, no, I mean, like you just said, the hair is circumstantial in this event. It might be her hair. Someone did the source identification correct, but you're saying that, yeah, but how did it get there? That's what makes it circumstantial.
See, I wish I was better at math. I would have been a great forensics. Glenn, it was awesome having you. Definitely got a setup to come back. I started this new venture, which I didn't get even a chance to explain. I started this new venture that I was going to do more of a news show instead of just a regular true crime.
Yeah.
And so tonight was like the first one, and there's still, rough run. We got some kinks to work out, and it'll get there. But yeah, that was the whole point.
No, I was on earlier watching, and I saw it, and I saw your video. Thought it was a very nice tribute, very moving.
Thank you.
And it's clear you put a lot of work into the graphics and the design of this, and it looks really good. Yeah, you'll work out the kinks and have some fluid transitions, but again, thanks for thinking of me and asking
Absolutely.
Glad I could talk to you about forensics. I love talking about forensics, and you're so passionate about these cases and forensics. And I love hearing your views on this.
Thank you. And I love your expertise. So everyone, Glenn, I forgot your last name.
It's Langenburg.
Langenburg. And it's from Double Loop Podcast. And he's a forensic and fingerprint expert. Not a DNA expert, a fingerprint expert. But his partner, Eric's...
Here, my co-host.
He's DNA or he's fingerprints too?
He's fingerprints too.
Oh,
We're both fingerprints. But again, we both have a love of forensics, so we know just enough to be a little dangerous in the different disciplines.
All right. Glenn, it's been a pleasure. Guys, I got to go pick up Phoenix.
All right.
I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. And episode 1. So now I can retitle it. But yeah, episode 1 went well. I will see you guys later. Have a wonderful night. Peace. Thank you so much,
everybody.
Glenn.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Bye.